Is it working? All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Nectar Garden. We're going to do a update on our tomatoes, grafted and non-grafted, and some of the good things that have happened and some of the things that are not so good. So, first thing to notice, I've got this handy dandy critter repeller that is here because we have a problem with deer eating these tomato plants. So I have one of these on each corner, and at night has little red LEDs that are supposed to look like the glowing red eyes of predators. It's kind of a stretch, but it seems to be working so far. Over here, we have our different kinds of peppers. They seem to be doing well. This area will not be complete until I cover this cardboard with sawdust, but even without it, things are looking pretty good. So another problem with these tomato plants is it's really hard to keep them watered. There's so much air exposure and the drainage is so good and the plants are so vigorous and pulling so much water that you pretty much have to water them every day. If you don't, there'll be damage to the fruits. They'll kind of shrink up and the skin will get puckery. And then even if you water it, the development of the fruits is never really quite right after that. So that would be a problem for anybody trying to do this. What I'm going to try to do is set up a drip irrigation rig so I'm not forced to come out here and water this every single day. It'll probably happen, but I got to work some things out. So as far as the plants individually, or by variety, let's say, these two rows that I'm standing in the middle of are all grafted plants. Now they're ahead of the other tomatoes. So is it because they were put on the grafts earlier, so they're an older plant and that makes them bigger? Or is it because of the vigor that's imparted to them because of the because of the graft because of the grafted rootstock? Probably both. But they are doing quite well. So this is Early Girl, Mortgage Lifter. These are delicious, I believe. The last three. On this side, Big Zach. The Early Girl seemed to have the most fruit, but the Mortgage Lifter is actually looking pretty good with some larger fruits. So once we get out of the grafted plants, we get into some of the other heirloom varieties. These 6 that I'm standing in the middle of, those are Wenzall, and you can kind of tell because they had this weird, they call it a potato leaf tomato plant. So they're doing quite well. This section is the Opelkas. These are actually a paste tomato like a Roma, but they're quite a bit larger. And I think they're actually a superior variety to Roma and the San Marzano. So some of the deer damage that I was talking about, over here on this Delicious, being on the edge, you can tell that it really took a major hit. Now it's going to come back, but every time something like that happens, you're losing. You're losing time, you're losing growth, you're losing total productivity. But all along this edge, there's a lot of them that took hits like that. So moving on, Omar's Lebanese. these four. And over here we start getting into some cherry tomatoes. These are yellow pears. So how do you get a yellow tomato that's shaped like a pear and really call it a cherry tomato? I'm not sure, but that's what they are. And so this entire row, plus the last three on this side, are the Italian heirloom tomato, the Canestrana de Luca. It's probably pronounced incorrectly, but they're doing very well also. And then over here we have a couple of Husky Cherry 100s. Then we start getting into some viney stuff. These are honey nut squash. So anyway, about how these tomatoes are trained and pruned, you notice that the lower branches have been clipped and a lot of the leaves that want to curl down, I've actually clipped off the ends of them, trying to keep everything up a certain distance from the soil surface. And that's really just to allow more air movement into the center of the plant, which reduces diseases. It reduces the occurrence of fungus and bacterial problems. It makes it easier to see the different kind of insect problems you can have when they start moving in there. So far, everything looks really clean. The only other thing that I really need to do is I have my neem seed cake that I'm going to spread out on the soil surface, and that's actually going to happen today. So then my entire tomato project will be complete except for the drip irrigation system, but I'm going to spread that stuff out, and then that should repel the insects that I don't want. It should eliminate or stop completely some of the fungus problems that have a tendency to crop up later in the season. It'll probably even stop it from drying out quite so fast and also provide a little bit of nitrogen as it decomposes. So aside from the critter problems, the deer, at this point in time, I think it's fair to say that the tomato garden is looking pretty good out here in Claybanks. On what day? Longer about July 7th. All right.